everything happens for a reason, and I am going to tell you what happened to me. My story, the parts that are messy, the parts that I feel shame about, the whole thing is a story about how God, over time, never stopped pursuing my heart. 3 things. 1, I'm going to suggest that if you have not found Jesus, that you do that. Okay. 2, if you have found Jesus your homeboy, then I'm going to suggest that you do one of these. It's called a testimony. You don't have to do it like this. This is just my platform. So I am so awkward in this. 3, this is 3. I'm going to be telling my story. If you are a part of this story, I believe that every person I've come in contact with was like a gutter guard at a bowling alley, like pointing me in the direction that I should go. You know how like a bowling ball like goes down, but like if there's a gutter guard, it won't go in the gutter. You were part of that. And so thank you. And here we go. I was raised in church, and so summer camp, when I was 8, Camp Nanichaha. We're from Nanichaha, and our camp's a good one. We battle the copperheads 15 feet long. That's how that song goes. I had heard my whole life, like in church, my whole 8 years. There's gonna be a moment in your life where you feel God calling you. You don't do it till you feel the need to do it. And I was always like, what? Can you just explain that a little bit? So here I am, 8 years old, Camp Nanichaha. The insects may eat us, but they'll never beat us, 'cause we're from Nanichaha and we're on the ball. I don't know why we did that like that. And they did what's called a call to the altar. If you feel like you want to accept Jesus into your heart, then come to the altar, which is most of the time up at the front. But in this situation, it was like you go into this other building, like we'll talk to you. So I was sitting there and I was like, okay. And then, and this is like, it's also kind of hard to explain, but it's like I felt this like literal physical pull in my heart. It like, I don't know how to explain it except for that. It was like this like pull, like weird, funky feeling I'd never felt before. And I was 8, accepted Jesus. It was awesome. And I am not discrediting that moment, because that is the first time that I ever felt or heard God speak to me. We'll get into that more later. Fast forward. This is when it gets a little messy. Shameful. This is the part I don't want to talk about. When I was growing up, even in elementary school, I always had this weird desire in my heart for like a grand romance, or just like that beautiful like love story. Love, marriage, kids, all that. I was on a constant hunt for it. I remember class, like every elementary school class, the beginning of the year, I would like look around my class and be like, am I gonna fall in love with him? Which seems so silly, and yes, it's like an 8-year-old situation. At 15, it's not so fine, because I thought like I would envision my future with these guys. I would also like give them parts of myself, my heart, parts of me physically, and it's not healthy. I was very distracted. I was distracted by these relationships and these people. I will never probably see these people again in my life. I just always had that little search. I turned relationships that should have been friendships into more than that, and I wish I hadn't. When we got older, we started like drinking and smoking weed, and I would do those things to see what would happen, to see what like magical connection I would have with someone who was there at that party. Come senior year, like I didn't have a vision for what my future would be. Everyone was going to college. I didn't have a plan for that. My relationship with my mom was really terrible. I mean, there was even a point where like I had been so disrespectful, she kicked me out of the house, and I lived with my grandparents for a little while, my senior year of high school. And so I just needed the biggest change I could do. And And so I moved as far away as I could that was comfortable still. So I moved to Dallas with my cousin, and I slept on a pallet on his floor for a few months, and I got a job teaching preschool at a Scientology school, which is a funny story, and I did not know. Anyway, that's a very sweet time of my life. And then about a year into living in Dallas, I felt called back home. But the summer before I moved to Dallas, I had been a part of a film crew, and that film crew documented over the summer. They documented a nonprofit organization that provides camps for kids with special needs, kids, adults. And so that was kind of a first experience in my life when, like, I don't know, I just really enjoyed the people that I got to be around. Like, it was kind of pivotal in my life to realize that, like, okay, there are people like this, and I, like, connect with these people. So I knew when I moved back from Dallas that, like, I had that group to, like, grow and come back to, if that makes any sense. So I came back from Dallas and I moved in with my grandparents, and I started going to Sunday church, Wednesday night church, college Bible study. I was going like 3 times a week to church and just like filling my notebook and just like diving in, which was wonderful and great. But I still wasn't like fixed on the inside. So I felt that pull again that I had felt like way back when I was 8. So again comes the pull. But this time I was not listening to it. I was still trying to fill that hole. I was still trying to fill that gap. I was still trying to find that like magic romance and like see my potential with some guy. So I started dating a guy. I ended up back at like some of the same parties, and one night I remember like sitting in one of those parties and looking around the room and thinking, if I leave, if I stand up and walk out and go, no one's going to follow me. No one's going to ask where I'm going. No one's going to call tomorrow if I don't come back in and ask if I'm okay. So I did. I stood up. I left. I got in my car. I leaned my seat back and I like held my hands like this above. I hit the mic. But I held my hands like above my head and I leaned back, and I just like, I had a very intense moment of silence where I just prayed and asked and knew that I was not going the direction I should be going. So I literally put my car in drive, went back home, didn't know exactly how to pursue that or what that looked like. It was a Friday night and we had been drinking, and I like went a little further than I should have drinking wise and got very upset with the group I was with. They were going to go to a bar and I was 19, and they didn't want to take someone in my state who was 19 to a bar, and I got really angry and slapped someone in the face, which in turn they were like, okay, we need to take this girl home. They took me home. I stumbled into bed and woke up the next morning and called a friend and asked if she could take me to camp, because I had camp the next day. That's why I knew it was a Friday. I had camp the next day, and I had to be there, and sobered up on the way there. When we were checking into camp that day, I shook hands with Josh for the first time. After camp that weekend, I went home, called that guy I was dating, and confirmed the fact that we were not dating anymore. Which I already knew. But then, like, that was the pivotal moment where I was like, okay, I've been throwing myself into these Bible studies, but now, like, my heart needs to go with it too. I've been showing up, been writing down the stuff, been talking, but now is the time I need to just let it go and be like fully committed. So I was. I was not talking to anyone, was not going to date. I would like write Bible verses. I was a waitress at the time. I would write Bible verses on my tickets and like in hopes to like spark up conversation. I was baptized then. ish. The timeline again, timeline. But a few weeks later, after I've been doing that, I get a phone call, and it's Josh on the phone calling me. And I told him, I was like, I'm not dating, like, I'm down to be friends, but I'm not doing that anymore. I need to, like, unless I am going to marry someone, like, I'm not dating, not talking to anyone. He was like, okay. And I think he took that as a challenge. I think you know how that story ends up. So if I simply would not have gone to camp that next day because of the decisions I'd made, like, I don't know what my life would be like. Or if I would have not seen that as a pivotal moment and went back to my old life, I don't know where I would be right now. If I wouldn't have fully dove in and told Josh no when he first pursued me, like, I don't know where I would be right now if I didn't lean into those times when God was pursuing my heart, which is really funny because I felt that right before I recorded this video. Fast forward again, are married and living in Shakota, and Josh is coaching basketball, and we have been married a little bit, and I hear and feel that weird pull in my heart, and God is saying to me, like, it's time to have a baby. It's time. Stop preventing it. Go for it. We were on a 5-year plan. I'm pretty sure we'd only been married like 2 years. So, maybe 1.5. I don't know. Math. But we've been married a short time. And I remember Josh being like, we said we're on the 5-year plan. I was like, I know. But I know. And so I listened more, and I was like, okay, God, hang on just a second, God. And I could not get it out of my head. I could not stop feeling like this was the time. This was the time for us to start having babies. So we get pregnant with Parker. Everyone's excited. We're excited. It's all great. All wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Gosh. Okay. 14 days. "14 days before Parker was born, one of our very best friends died of a stroke. He was 37 years old and left behind his wife and 2 daughters. It was the weirdest time. We were very sad, but we were also very joyful as we were bringing life into the world at the same time. So, sorry. So, 14 days later, we get a call in the hospital, and they ask Josh to go and take our friend's position at the camp. So we go, and we prayed a lot because we did not, it was closer to our family, it was closer to our friends. We didn't, God, Josh had been called to, like, coach basketball and steward those kids, and so we just wanted to make sure it was exactly, like, where God wanted us and what was best for camp. So he answered us with yes. We moved with the 1-month-old to Guthrie, and we shortly after had Hattie, our sweet little surprise. So after all this, you might be thinking, like, well, wow, that's really precious. Her Her family is complete. She followed God's plan. She, like, this dream that was put in her heart a long time ago, it was fulfilled. Yes, yes. But let me tell you, God never stops working on your heart. Okay? I'm going to read this part to you because I wrote this down to, like, remember where I was going with this. God is never, and I mean never, done with me. Motherhood has taught me that I'm a wildly selfish person. Motherhood rocked me to my core by showing me what I was capable of giving to others. And I was angry about it for a while. So time and money were my gods. I would sit in church and think of new marketing ideas. I couldn't focus. I could not focus on the sermon. I was thinking of marketing ideas for my business and not able to focus. So I would get frustrated if my schedule wouldn't allow me to work when I wanted to, because I was solely responsible for the care of my children for so many hours. But God again changed something in me. He's been pursuing me over and over and over again. He opened my eyes to see that everything he's given me has been a gift that I'm honored to be responsible for. My family, my friends, my time, my money, all of that orchestrates to build and grow his kingdom. Because I accepted him as the Lord of my life 21 years ago. So he continued and continued to pursue that. My God is good. He is gracious, as you've seen in my story. But he also has supreme power and authority. Everything happens for a reason. And if that term irks you out and makes you angry, if it makes you cringe to hear that everything happens for a reason, know two things. One, our God, his reason is bigger, so much bigger than you are even capable of comprehending. And if you want to change that statement from everything happens for a reason, you can say everything happens for a purpose. That purpose being that Jesus is calling you out of darkness